Hello, all of my history-loving friends. Welcome to the world of Madame Morbid. I am your guide on any number of historical adventures. Today, I'd like to say Happy Halloween! This is going to be my Halloween special. I'm going to tell you ghost stories about the second most haunted hotel in the Ozarks. It is second only to the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, which I will be visiting at some point too. I'm standing at the Hollister Railroad Depot right across the street from the Ye Olde English Inn. When it was first built, it was just Ye English Inn, and it was the brainchild of a Springfield architect named William Johnson. He had been to Europe and he had seen the beautiful Tudor style English buildings and he really liked them. And he got this idea to bring that back to Hollister. At the time, we're talking 1909, 1910, Hollister was really becoming a big tourist attraction, largely because of the railroad. And people would come to float the White River. Also, a lot of hunters came in, and they would need a place to stay. At the time, all of the buildings in Hollister faced away from this depot. The depot, basically, you got off the train and came into an alley. He wanted to turn the buildings around, so when you got off the train, you would get off and there was this hotel right in front of you. The hotel was built, and then it became a battle for which way future buildings would be facing. And ultimately, there's a big truck going by. Ultimately, facing the train won. And not only that, any building built after this had to match the style of the inn. So that now Downing Street here looks like you are entering into this European little village. And William Johnson, he designed this hotel. Oh my God, really? I came around to the other side. Hopefully the jackhammering's a little better. William Johnson not only designed the hotel, but when future buildings extended off of it, he designed them as well so that they matched the style of the hotel. That's William Johnson right there. It also appears he wrote a column in the newspaper called Hollister's Day to Day. The depot basically looks just like it did when they built it. It looks like the ticket taker would have been on this side, and then there's the window where you bought your tickets. So passengers, the waiting area would have been in here. Now it looks like they use it as an event venue. The Ozarks Scenic Railroad goes on these tracks now. I've done that before. It's really expensive, but it's pretty cool to do. You're on vintage cars from all different eras, and you can walk around the train. It's been a long time since I did it, so it may have changed. Originally, the inn was just the small part you see here, and it didn't have the third story at first. And then the restaurant and the bar were built on much later. The building you see next to the hotel was the bank. Now it is a salon. I'm gonna tell our first story now. In the area that is now the restaurant, there was a barber shop. They said it happened in the 1920s. Now I have to let you know I was not able to find any stories in the newspaper on this happening. But keep in mind, I don't know the names of anyone involved, and I don't know the exact year. I really didn't have what I needed to be able to find it. Where I got all of these stories was a ghost tour of the inn given a couple of weeks ago. So there was a barber shop right here. I don't know the barber's name, but he basically had a bully named Popcorn. I don't know his real name, but he would walk by and every day he would spit on the barber's window. And we're not talking just spit, we're talking tobacco. Every day the barber had to come out and clean off the window after Popcorn walked by. And finally one day he had had enough, and he told Popcorn, "If you spit on my window one more time, I will shoot you." Popcorn didn't take him seriously. Sure enough, he went by one day, he spit on that window again. The barber got his gun, came outside, and shot Popcorn. Now exactly where he shot him, I don't know. It may have been like a gut wound maybe, because he lingered for a while. They brought him inside, they put him in the barber chair. They sent for an ambulance, but they had to send for it from Springfield. And it took them 3 days to get here. And by that time, Popcorn was gone. There's a man seen walking around the inn sometimes in work clothes. A lot of people assume it is him. There's also a story of an old man who used to sit back here and whittle outside of the train station. And that after his wife died, he got very despondent, came out, laid on the tracks, and let the train run over him. But that story has never been verified by anybody. The Popcorn story has been verified from what I've been told, even though I wasn't able to find it. I mean, I just didn't have the information I needed to find it. As I was researching the history of the inn, it has changed hands many, many times. It did a really great business up until the big flood in the 40s. Right here you can see how high the water got in the lobby. It was very significant. This is a picture of the mayor in a canoe in the lobby of this hotel. It was shut down for a while after this flood, and it reopened in the late 50s or early 60s, I believe, and has had a succession of owners since then. Cars came along and really hurt tourism here in Hollister. All of their tourists got here by train. Tourism fell dramatically during World War II, and then it became a car society. So it took a while to get it back up and running, and there were many owners through the 60s and the 70s, and in the 80s it was empty for a long time again, and then opened back up in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and then was closed again. Early 2000s it kind of came back, and then Janet Daly bought it in 2010, the author. She oversaw the renovation, so a lot of the decoration choices you see were hers. And some of the ghosts that are seen here are from the more modern era. I found one owner in the 70s who committed suicide. I don't think he did it on site, and I don't know that he is ever seen. But there were two people who died in the hotel in 2007. It was like very end of December 2006, and then 6 months later in 2007, and they are from the same family. We will get into the story of that family later on. Right now, we're headed upstairs, and I'm going to tell you our next story, which took place on the second floor lobby and may have involved the family I just mentioned. Pardon the mess, they have had a leak on the third floor, so I can't go up there today, but I have some pictures from when I was here the other time. We had a really big rainstorm, and so all the laundry is down here piled up. So one of the stories I'm going to tell you involves a man sitting right here watching television. This was during renovations, around 2010, when Janet Daly owned it. Just like right now, the third floor was cordoned off by a velvet rope, like it is right now. A man walked down these stairs. This was a full-bodied apparition, looked like just a person. He was alone in this building. I think he was a worker who was helping renovate, and the second floor was finished, but the first floor wasn't done, and the third floor wasn't done. And so he watched this man walk down the stairs, and he walked right through that velvet rope. And right then and there, the man got up, he got his things, and he left. Another story, also when they were renovating, They were actually working in the restaurant area when they saw a man walk through the front door into the lobby. The worker, he came into the lobby and the man was still just standing there. So they went and they called the police. Police came, they reported an intruder. This was 9 at night. The police came, there was nobody there, and they asked him for a description of the man he had seen. And he described a middle-aged man in a nice suit, wearing a hat similar to a fedora. There weren't any pictures up at that time, so they showed him the portrait drawn on the caboose outside. And he said, "Oh my God, that's the man." And he quit right there on the spot. My favorite story involving Mr. Johnson is with a new employee, young kid, 18, 19, working in the restaurant area. It was early in the morning and they weren't open yet, and he was just doing his duties, maybe not doing them real fast because he was new. The first week of a job sucks. And he heard someone clear their throat behind him. And he turned around and there was this man standing there who said, "You need to be working faster. I want to talk to your manager." So the young man, he was kind of offended, but he walks and he finds the manager and brings him back, and the man is gone. The manager asks him to describe the man, and he gives a very similar description. Middle-aged, fancy suit, nice hat. And this time he shows him a picture of Mr. Johnson, and the young man says, "Oh, yeah, that's him." He too quit right on the spot. Who knew Mr. Johnson was a Karen? So today, the second floor is going to have to stand in as our third floor. The most activity happens on the third floor. I had a short conversation with a lady who is handling the leak upstairs. I guess she's the facilities manager or something. I didn't get her actual title. But I asked her if she'd seen things, and she said that yeah, she does. And she thinks of her job is to keep them happy. And she said if anything strange ever happens, she just says, okay, I get it. You're upset. Or, okay, now cut it out. Stop moving my stuff. Or tries to figure out what they want so she can change whatever it is. They just coexist. This floor is identical in appearance to the third floor. The main thing that happens on the third floor is a little girl plays up there. It's very common for guests to come down in the morning and complain about whoever was allowing their children to run through the hallways and make a lot of noise and run up and down the hall all night long. Many times, there aren't any children actually staying in the inn at the time. She also sometimes appears at the foot of people's beds, just staring at them. And then when they wake up and notice her, she giggles and she runs away and out into the hall. So I guess it's like a game for her. Apparently this little girl's name is Laura. She drowned in Turkey Creek around 1920. This was found in records that the city administrator looked up after these sightings started to happen. Another death that occurred on this floor, on the second floor, and I don't know in which room. This is around 2008, and a family was living here while they ran the restaurant. Their last name was Picos, and they came from Florida. So it was the father and his father, so grandpa, and 3 kids, and the wife. And one of their children was 18-year-old Nick. And one night the city administrator said he got a call about a death in the inn. Now, Grandpa and his bed, his hospital bed, was in the area we were just in, where the television area is, because he was terminally ill with cancer. And so he thought immediately that it was going to be Grandpa. But he said no, it was an 18-year-old it was Nick. He thought he had the flu. And so he went into his room and he was just resting. I think he was actually found in the bathroom. So maybe he went in there trying to find relief. But what had happened was he actually had a burst appendicitis. And since it went untreated, he didn't make it. This happened around Christmas. He said the kids had all just been outside playing in the snow around the railroad tracks, riding down that hill, and just having a good time. And unfortunately, he passed away. Grandpa would pass away in this building also shortly thereafter. And within a year or two, that's when Janet Daly bought the hotel. It's very possible that the man the worker saw coming down the stairs from the 3rd floor, named Henry Picos. The man he saw was in modern day clothing. And they've captured an EVP on the 3rd floor asking, "Where is Nick?" On the 3rd floor, however, there is also a verified and known incident in which a man whose wife or girlfriend or significant other had just left him, and he was extremely upset about it. So he came to the inn and he rented a room on the 3rd floor. I think I have an idea of which one it might have been. And he committed suicide with a shotgun in that room. On that floor, it is said there is a male spirit that does not like women at all, and they think it is probably him. He's a very angry spirit, and if he died in the room, I think he did. I really wanted to show you that room, but I can't. It is used as their storage now. Pretend we're on the 3rd floor. I believe it was the second one from the end upstairs. If it is identical to upstairs, that room would have been 309 at one point, but up there now, there is no number over that door because they cannot rent it out as a room. They have tried repeatedly. Finally, they just gave up. They just gave up. They would go in the room and they would find everything thrown everywhere. There would be things on the floor, towels. One time, the owner was walking into the room holding a towel when something red started to drip onto it. The towels are white, like a red liquid. Another time they went in there and there was water just running down the walls, and they thought they had a bad leak, so they called a plumber. The plumber came in, there was nothing there, and there was no evidence that anything had ever been wet either. So finally they just gave up trying to have that as a guest room, and they store everything in there. Right now, I'm told since there's a flood, everything out of that room is now in the hallway. That's why I couldn't go up there. But that's why that's the storage room. And I wonder if that is the room the man killed himself in, because it sounds like he is still very upset. One last story. The housekeeping staff complains about the laundry room. The laundry room is kept locked when no one is in there, and they will go in and they will find towels thrown around. But they also will go in there and they will find the dryer door open. And there's nothing wrong with the door. It latches just fine. There's no way to explain how the dryer door constantly opens by itself. Other than the very sad man, it doesn't sound like anybody living here who is no longer living is negative. They're just here. And the people of the inn who work here, just, it's a part of their day, it sounds like. They just try to keep them happy and, you know, go with the flow. They live in harmony somewhat, but they still get guest complaints all the time about various things. And sounds like Mr. Johnson is still hanging around, making sure everything is running smoothly in his hotel. Okay, so you guys know, if you follow me, you know I'm crazy about the Titanic. Is what got me into into history. This is the book that got me into the Titanic. This is the 1985 Robert Ballard book about finding the wreck. What are the odds? I mean, that is an old book. But these pictures here of them, the ROVs going in and peeking in windows, and the footage of the wreck, which was really crude in 1985, but oh my god, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Since I was so close, I came to Point Lookout for this gorgeous view. This natural beauty is what brought sportsmen and tourists to this area to stay at Ye English Inn back in the early 1900s and 1920s. This is what they came to see. The college has made this beautiful garden here overlooking this view here. My gosh, the beauty is stunning. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed our haunted tour and history lesson on the Ye English Inn, or what is now called the Ye Olde English Inn. It's a beautiful place here. I recommend coming. I recommend staying there. If you're brave, stay on the 3rd floor and enjoy yourselves, and definitely come out to Point Lookout for this amazing view. I could just lay on that cliff all day long, I think, and just breathe it all in. I will see you next time. Thanks for joining me, and if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe.